Hello and welcome. I'm here today with a true legend in the communities, or well, many communities, but I'm here with the one and only McBeard. Today we're gonna learn all about him. And to be hello, and to begin,
Hello, hello.
what would you like me to call you during this conversation?
Oh, that's a wild one. That's such an interesting question because online it's like you just get called what you're called, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just man, you can just call me McBeard because we just met. I'll call you John because John's in your name.
Yep.
I don't know. It's weird. I think it'd be weird if you started calling me Dane, which is my first name, I guess. But I don't know why it would be weird because that's my name. But I guess it's just weird because in the online universe, I'm not Dane. I'm
That's
McBeard,
true.
right? Like it's like the name we give ourselves. I think a lot of I mean it's different online. Every person online does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But um like artists tend to like musicians and stuff like they have to give themselves that name. And that just has much more weight to it. But I'm just like it's halfway between my real name and my screen name. So McBeard is just fine.
McBeard it'll be, but you're right. There's a disconnect when it comes to what's my online persona, my username. You might have made it when you're
Mm.
young, you have history with it, and then you jump over. It's like, what is my actual name?
I like being called McBeard because it's like have you ever seen Seinfeld where have you ever watched the show Seinfeld in your life?
I've seen a couple
Yeah.
episodes here or there
It's a
growing
little
up,
this is
but
a little dated now. I think I'm maybe dating myself, but
oh,
there's
good.
there's an episode where one of the characters tries to give himself a nickname, and obviously it goes terribly. He doesn't get the nickname he wants. It's very funny. But it's like the idea that like on the online world, when you give yourself a nickname, people are
Hmm.
gonna call you that.
Yes.
There's no like, I'm not gonna call you that, buddy. Whatever T-bone. Like it's not gonna happen like that. So I think that there's just a lot of it's just a different feeling online because you can really make a name for yourself. But when people call me McBeard, it's like, oh yeah, they're calling me the nickname I gave myself. Even though I think if I were to give myself a name now, if I had to go clean slate, I probably wouldn't pick this name anymore. I don't know what I would pick.
Hmm.
And I'm probably just feeling like that because I've used this name for so long and it just seems like, I'm wearing the same shirt. But yeah, I mean, McBeard. Wow, I gave you a long answer for a very simple question.
Well, I think it is less simple in this space because there's considerations of safety, there's considerations of branding, there's consideration of when did you pick your name and how long have you had it and whether it actually ages well. Because Plain Talk John is a relatively new name for myself. I've had many other usernames and they did not qualify for this time. And
Mhm.
so there is a lot that goes into picking a name, and it's not something that you're given. You pick yourself, right? Our actual full names are given by our parents in most cases. Most people don't change their names. Maybe if they get married, they'll change their last name, depending on the culture. But when it comes to online space, things get blurry. You have a lot more freedom to pick what you want, but are you always gonna be happy with it? Are you gonna be happy with the weight it carries and what you've built up with that name? No,
It's
it's a
funny if you
mm-hmm.
change your screen name when you get married too. So it's like
Uh-huh.
if Hafu and Dog were gonna get married, Hafu would have to change your screen name to Hafu Dog. That's
Yeah,
the
that's
rule.
how it works, right?
That's the new world, guys. That's the new world.
No, it makes
Every name
sense.
changes,
It
or no
makes
name
sense.
changes.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. This is the part where this is your chance really to tell your story. A lot of people start with education or first job. Just tell me about McBeard.
Yeah, I got a little history, so I'll try to truncate it a little bit.
All right.
Um, I'm 38, so I'm older for the gaming space generally. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of gamers that are my age are still doing things out there. I mean, I think a lot of the Magic the Gathering greats, they started young too, because that's
Yep.
kind of when like cards started to surge into popularity. Like I started playing Magic
Mm-hmm.
cards 95, 96.
Oh,
Like
that's
that's
pretty
like
recent
around the
when it came out.
time.
Or
What?
it's recent when relative to when it came out, right? It came out in the 90s. So you started playing pretty early on.
Yeah, I mean, so it came out like over 25 years ago, so that makes me at least 25, right?
Well,
So I'm pretty late.
yes.
But yeah, so I like it was fourth edition had just come out if you know Magic the Gathering at all. So I like fourth edition. Actually, fourth edition hadn't come out yet when I started. It was like like the week or two later. So
Mm-hmm.
still whiteboarded cards, still like whatever. Um, that's like when I started playing cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I've always liked card games.
Okay.
Went to school, went to college, journalism, got a job at a daily newspaper.
Hmm.
Did worked. I did the job. It's called the composing, and it's not like
Mm-hmm.
composing. It's when you put together the page and then you send it off to the printing press and then they print that newspaper page.
Interesting.
That was my job. 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. Get the newspaper ready for print, and they'd print it at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and they'd get it out in the morning. So I did that for a year and a bit, and then and then I just totally flipped it around, started bartending, did that for 8 years, went back to college, got a diploma in advertising, did that for 6 years, worked with massive brands, did one of the biggest built. It's called out of home in advertising when you buy like bus shelters and stuff.
Okay.
Did one, if not two, of the biggest out of home stuff that had come out of a Toronto agency
Wow.
ever when I did that stuff. So I got really involved in like billboards and bus shelters, and that was like for some reason it was one of my favorite things. And it's weird because like media is dying in a lot of ways. Newspapers not doing very well. TV had an unexpected comeback, but TV was like people were saying that was going to go for a while too. But I thought, you know what, a billboard, that's forever. And
Yep,
then
it's just
COVID happens,
there.
and it's like, oh my god, out of home is the one that's going to take the hit here because no one's leaving their home. Let's get out of this boring advertising conversation. I feel like I've been talking about
Well,
advertising for the
no.
last couple of days.
I mean, if you want to get out of it, we can skip past it. But
No,
this,
we're going to skip past it, but I'm just going to say that it was, I think that taking time away from it, because what happened, advertising was the job I had right before this, or right before like I started doing broadcasting and streaming and all of the various little bits and pieces of work that I've done ever since then. So advertising was like the closest thing to me when I left it. So I left it with a lot of like hot stress. Like I left it with like the memory is still fresh, kind of like there was a lot of like turmoil when it came to like the stress of managing other people's money and all that stuff. So I looked at it when I was, and I went from going to a job that was causing me a lot of distress to what I would consider a dream job. This was a dream job, to be traveling around the world and casting video games. Without a doubt, one of the best jobs I could ever imagine having in my life. So it's almost like it blasted the color out of the rest of my life. It really made me wonder, like, I can't, like, nothing is going to be the same after this. Now we're 4 years on. I've kind of had a boom and bust. Like, it's not, I'm not saying that I just don't really play Gwent anymore, and Gwent was my game. So I just don't really, as far as like feeling popular, there's a little less of that. But with that time passing, I can look at my life from here and kind of see that like everything was kind of the same. This casting job wasn't necessarily bigger or better. In my mind, it was though. But that's where it matters the most, I think.
yes.
And in my mind, every other job was terrible. But now I think that I've processed it a bit. I think that I could say that every single piece of my life was super important, and I'm happy that I did it all. And who knows what I'll do next? I was actually just talking yesterday. I'm always going to play video games, and I'm always going to like want to hang out with people if I'm doing that, because if I turn on my camera and like 10 of my friends are going to hang out with me, I'll do that all the time. So I can't imagine that I'll ever not stream. But I don't feel like a streamer at the moment. I feel even though I'm still streaming lots of card games, doing work with card games, I'm doing a lot of other side work as well. And it's like I feel like I'm a person who streams, but I'm not a streamer as much as I used to be. And I don't know, maybe you might be catching me at like in the sunset years of my efforts to be a person on the internet. But at the moment it's forever interesting, I think, as much as the internet is full of some pretty awful things. People who just say stuff to you.
Yep.
Like I can't even really explain it beyond that. It's just like there are versions of people that exist on the internet that aren't real. Like it's kind of scary. It's like that, like if you have like a general fear of like the worst in people, and you think that like this thing could live inside people, that thing roams freely on the internet. Like it just has it like completely untethered, and that's it's a scary place.
It is. I mean, there's no consequences, no real identifier. If I get banned from a site that I've been yelling at, saying awful things, get banned, make a new account, get back to it.
Yeah, it's not like getting kicked out of an actual place of business.
Right. Because if someone says this terrible thing while you mention you bartended, right? You just say, remove them from the establishment, go ruin somebody else's bar. But on the internet,
yeah, I mean, we also have like a legal obligation to do that too.
Yes.
Because their disruption is a disruption of others. Now, in a stream, that's what happens too. Like somebody comes in the chat, starts, putting in some like vulgar pastas or whatever. You got to deal with that shit. But no one's gonna come and check up on that person later and say, we're gonna write you a ticket for your social disturbance. Like, there's
Yes.
there's no
No
repercussions
consequence.
for it.
Repercussions. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's my story. Yeah, I've had lots of different chapters in my life. Like, I've never, I didn't go. I was gonna do like career stuff in advertising, but it's just not like I don't have the same drive, I think, as other people. And I'm
Okay.
still actually working on understanding my own drive, but there's a comedian named Neil Brennan who has a fantastic Netflix special, and he's Dave Chappelle's comedy like partner, like his writing partner as well.
Mhm.
And he did a bit on just on his own personality in his last special, and he talks about how he only understands adrenaline and ego, and he has no internal way of kind of compartmentalizing any sort of like pride or achievement. He lives
Interesting.
for like the rush of life.
Mhm.
So it's like success is a rush, but but constantly succeeding is not. Like, that's kind of how I started to feel like when I was in advertising and I was getting, I got like a promotion after a bit and I was doing good work, and for a while I'm just like, yo, I'm making it. I'm a real
Mhm.
adult human. I'm out there in the world. I'm making money. I got a great job and things are looking up and this is awesome. And then, after the fourth or fifth year, it's just like just it's just a gray void. Like, there's no, even if I'm still working towards goals or I'm still working towards like achievements within that industry, there's something about that initial rush that goes away. Streaming is the same thing. You're kind of chasing that dragon, like that first host. Whoa, that first time like
Uh-huh.
X people are watching you. Whoa, I've never can't believe any stream would love to have this many people, and then that just becomes another day in like 500 days. So it's
Mm, yeah. I can
where
take
was
it.
I going with that?
No worries. I have a bunch of places I can take this. You have given me a
Yeah.
lot of things. So, do you mind? I think I'm gonna get a bit philosophical for a moment, if you don't mind.
Oh, hey, I don't mind that at all.
Okay. So I know people. The I can relate to that struggle. So I used to work in finance,
Mm.
and I quickly became the best in my division at a multi-trillion-dollar asset manager, and I had that reputation.
That's more money than I ever handled, and I handled millions.
Yes. No. And it makes me feel better.
Damn,
I was
man.
not handling a trillion
Showing up.
myself, but I also handled millions as well.
Yeah.
In terms of people call up like, here's my
I
account.
handled trillions, but I also handled millions.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest time I had to step in was just for us. There was a institutional plan that had billions with us, and they had a small problem. They needed somebody to fix it. I did that, but that was as close I got to like big money. Uh, but I remember experiencing a lot of success, and one thing I realized while there, the problem with having success and like the adrenaline from that be the goal is if you keep succeeding, you get used to it, right? The void starts to come up. And I know in Buddhism, this is kind of the core philosophy, the core problem that Buddha had. Because Buddha had it all. He was like the prince of a kingdom, riches, all of that. And then he got bored, right? He lost his meaning because he had it all. There was nothing left to get. We can also actually see this today, in my opinion, with Jeff Bezos. Did you hear about Jeff Bezos' yacht?
I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't know what you're about to say. I thought you were
Okay.
going to say something about space travel for sure, but no. What happened?
So
What happened on
Jeff
Jeff Bezos'
Bezos
yacht?
spent $500 million on like a mega yacht. And the yacht is so big and gigantic and too complicated, they couldn't fit a helipad on it. So he then commissioned a second yacht that has a helipad to go with the mega yacht. So he has a little like fleet of yachts that just go around the world. And that also, I think it's important to keep in mind, it doesn't really fit Jeff Bezos' personality. Because I just can't imagine Jeff Bezos not working. The idea that he's going to actually spend money and time and
Never
effort
has to work again. I don't think he has to work again. I
no,
mean,
he never has to, but he's going to keep doing it,
no.
right? There's a reason he's funding space stuff and has yachts. He's just running out of things to do because he's won capitalism. There's a point
I
where,
suppose, yeah. I suppose it's just like I want everything I want. Give it to me, and here's the money to make it happen.
yeah, and then he
Kind of thing.
realizes, once you've won capitalism, that's your goal. That's the great success.
Yeah.
There's nothing
He's on
there.
top of the leaderboard, right? That's it, right?
Yeah, but then
All
what?
that's left is
Uh
the
huh.
unexplored, right? So I can imagine how, you know, maybe, an average mud person like us compared to Jeff Bezos, we live mired in our own misery, wondering what's around every corner. Jeff Bezos, he wants to know what's around the planets, man. He knows it all. He sees it all. But I mean, I'm trying being half like I'm being sarcastic. Like
Well,
it seems dumb to me. Like
hmm
it seems like a waste of money to me. But for Jeff Bezos, I don't know like what the concept of money even is to a person like that.
well,
Like it's no longer. It's almost like if I had more money than anyone
hmm
and I wanted something,
okay.
the price would never come up in the conversation. Like I just don't think unless like I thought someone was trying to fleece me or whatever, but like the price tag would just be like whatever. It's just like just
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's just like am I going to get it or not?
Yeah, I think though the point I'm trying to hit is not that he's chasing that next high. He's trying to figure out what it is. But what I'm saying is he's getting stuck in that same gray void that I think you kept getting stuck in when you were in advertising. You've so
In
much
everything. Streaming too. No, that's the
Yep,
thing. Like
100%.
even broadcasting, like I'm always you you hit a rush and you're chasing it. It's just the way it is. And the adrenaline of the whole situation was it's hard to come back from that. It's hard to imagine that I will get that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to I'm just going to tell you that this is an amazing thing that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Challenger 1, I'm doing my first cast with
Okay.
Mogwai. It would be an 11-hour cast.
Mhm.
And the day before that, so that was Challenger 1, it was May 13th, 2016. Oh, I'm not even, I have the wrong code. The other one has the date on it.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2016, I think. And no, 2017? Doesn't matter. And May 12th, the day before, is my birthday. So, and if you remember, or if you didn't know, I'll tell you. Challenger 1 had some celebrities in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had 4 Gwent people from the Gwent community, and we also had life coach PPD Noxus and Trump SC
Mm-hmm.
from Hearthstone.
Yep.
And StarCraft, I guess, because SC. But everybody knows him for Hearthstone. So they were all there, and life coach and Trump and Noxus I knew just from being a Hearthstone fan, and PPD I knew who he was. But so May 12th is my birthday, and these people whom I was watching, like I've watched life coach win Hearthstone tournaments at this point, and here he is singing happy birthday to me because they planned a little surprise happy birthday for me with a cake and everything.
I like it.
And I have basically someone that I admire greatly, a celebrity in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also in Katowice, Poland. Like the whole thing is a fever dream. Like it really didn't, it was really so hard to process. But going from that to anything else is difficult. I got to tell you, going from that to anything else is difficult. Fortunately for me, I got to travel for quite a while after that and do much, much more over and over and over and over again. And every time I did it, I fucking loved it.
I think one thing that strikes me as in your entire journey is there's a lot of change that goes on, right? You went to school for multiple degrees, you've done multiple different jobs, it seems like you're hopping around and you just keep chasing that adrenaline high. You're trying to find that next thing that gets you excited. Would you agree with that? Or do you think that you're...
Well, I mean, definitely in the video game world, in the streaming world, excitement is the only thing that keeps me coming back online. Like it's just, I'm at a point, unfortunately, and I think this might just be card game burnout in general, but I'm at a point where like new is almost all I want, which is hard, right? Because games kind of function on expansions, and newness will always fade, and metas develop in card games, and that usually is kind of its own sort of refreshment as the season goes. That the meta might refine, you might learn matchups better, you get your own growth. That's the thing. But the nature of playing over and over and over and over again, and I feel like I noticed this specifically with Legends of Runeterra. So they just had a new thing come out yesterday, so I played it. And I don't really care about playing it today. Like it's just I played it, it was new, I saw it, and the next step is, well, I could fire it up again and play a little bit more new stuff and try some more new stuff. But eventually I got to say, why am I playing this game right now? Am I playing it to play it to get the rank? Am I playing it to make videos? And if I'm not doing any of those things, I'm definitely not getting enough out of streaming it, outside of the fact that I'm getting enjoyment out of playing something new.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of like streaming daily for a goal for me at the moment is it's kind of not there right now. It's
Yeah.
not there right now. Nothing is new
Mm-hmm.
enough to hold my attention to keep me down here. I'm in my studio now, but it's not just, I mean, it's also like, it's also post COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I'm double vaccinated. My life is kind of like coming back online after 18 months of being, everybody's, it's kind of
Yes.
happening to everybody at different speeds at different points. But
Merging.
my perception of life right now is just drastically different than it was before COVID hit. You know, I was about to
Mm-hmm.
get on a plane for Gwent Masters 1 that was eventually pushed to this year and all that stuff. But like at that moment when I was about to get on that plane, I had a certain feeling about Gwent, I had a certain feeling about my job, I had a certain feeling about the outside world. And you know, I wasn't really going out very much anymore. We moved from Toronto, which is like a super busy city,
Mm-hmm.
to where we are now. It was for my wife's teaching, but because she had to teach at the school in the city. But I did want to leave Toronto because like everybody seemed like crazy and the city was just so nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started to get like more and more kind of not agoraphobic. Like I wasn't scared of going out. I just like really, really, really didn't want to. And then, you know, streaming started to take off and I'm like, well, I don't have to. I can just chill in my
Mm-hmm.
backyard and I can stream. And that's just really good. And then COVID hit and it kind of wiped that feeling away. It
Yes.
made me really want to go back outside, move back to the city. It's completely undid so much of it. So, and I don't know, like this is all happening in my own space, but I wonder what it's like for other streamers because like Shinmiri is on vacation, right? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
probably he's taking his first vacation in a long time. I mean, I assume because we couldn't do anything before, right?
Yes.
So like he's like right out there in the warm weather, and I imagine there's a lot of people that are just like just everybody's kind of having their breakout of COVID moment, and that's going to happen for
Mm-hmm.
people over various times, like from wherever from May to whenever they it kind of it ends for those people. Like I like the idea that I'm vaccinated. I'm not saying it's over, but the idea that I am no longer like gonna give a hard time to a hospital if I get sick. If
Yeah.
I get sick, it's not going to be that bad. Uh, I mean, I don't really know exactly the limits of it, but I've been out. I've been
Mm-hmm.
seeing people. I've had visitors. I've visited people. I've gone to stores. I've bought new pants. Thank God, these are great. And it's like feels normal again. It feels like things are coming back to normal. And it's hard to get down here in this basement and stream when it's not only nice out, but it's also like I've been dying to get out and do stuff
Mm-hmm.
for over a year. Like, say it out loud. We've been stuck in our homes for over
Yes.
a year.
Isolated and then probably I know I'm
Science,
alone, but
science nonfiction, John. This is so crazy. It's still
yes.
crazy. It was crazy when it's happening, but we're living through history. And when we
Uh-huh.
read about it later, we're going to be like, I fucking did that.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry for swearing if that's
Oh,
not
you can
your
swear on
style
the
here.
stream. It's fine.
But yeah, it's really really hard for me to stream right now. So, but it's really hard for me to kind of make any big decisions in my life right now. Like it's so up in the air. Everything feels so up in the air. And COVID is the descriptor. And the thing about COVID being a global problem is that you can look at anybody and they'll be like, "How you doing? How's your life going? What's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
And you can just say, "Oh, you know, COVID,"
Yep.
and everybody gets it
Uh-huh.
worldwide. What else? What else? What else is like that?
They're nothing. Or as you
What
said, it's
else
like living
is
through
like that?
sci-fi.
But like the idea that I could go
Mm-hmm.
and talk to somebody in China that maybe wouldn't understand me and I wouldn't
Uh-huh.
understand them. But if I could get across a feeling, I said, you know, well, we went through COVID and you know what that's like. Nothing is
Yeah.
lost in translation there.
Nope.
Everybody knows what it's like. So it's
100%.
just it's a very powerful example of we're in this together and what that really can mean. And we were talking about liking people and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to have empathy when you know exactly what it's like. Like I know what it's like for me. I had my own
Mm-hmm.
challenges while we went through it. Everybody did. some people had bad years, and the fact that COVID was happening at the same time probably made it. They must have. I mean, there
Yes.
was probably some people
Some
that
people
went through the
suffered.
COVID times just being like, "How could this be happening to me?"
Mhm.
Because it feels like, when it's happening to you,
Mhm.
but it's happening to everybody, and it's not a special thing that happened to me. It would be special if it didn't happen to you. Like, that's how
Yes.
widespread it was. So anyway, it's fascinating, as terrible as it is. It's as things go on, it just becomes fascinating. Like I said,
Yeah.
we're living through history.
You're 100% right. It is gonna be in the book someday, and they'll show pictures of people who are wearing masks. They're talking about the race for the vaccine, how different countries handled it. This is gonna be in every textbook going forward, and especially in the medical community, because hopefully this will be the only pandemic in our lifetime. It might not be, but if after this experience, every doctor in the world is going to be sitting there saying, "Yeah, we want to make sure we know exactly how we handle this going forward, because we want to make sure the next one is not nearly as bad." Because
Just look at New Zealand. Didn't they do the
yeah,
best?
New
Weren't
Zealand,
they like
they
the
cleaned.
model of good of doing it properly, I
Yeah, there
think?
were a couple countries that did a great job. New Zealand did a great job. Taiwan, South Korea, a lot of these areas they just clamped down. They did whatever it took, and
The ones that didn't have leaders that told the opposite of truth. You know what? Let's not get
yeah,
into
you're up
that.
in
That's
Canada,
not.
right?
Oh, I am. I am in Canada. Yes.
Yeah, so
The best
mhm.
place for people who love to watch things burn is you got
I
a great vantage point from Canada, believe me.
yeah, I'm in the States. It was an
Right.
interesting time to watch masks become political. I thought it was a weird thing where mask wearing didn't demonstrated any political belief, but here we are. Here we are. We went through it. And
I feel the anger bubbling up. Can't
I
talk
just
about
I
can't talk
don't
about the states at all with me. I'm like oh man, I've seen too much of Tucker Carlson's stupid fucking face. You know what? Forget it. Let's move. Let's switch topics, man. Let's switch topics.
all good, all good. Well, I want to talk a little bit more because you have a really interesting like alignment of things going on in your life. I thought was curious, which is
Yeah, that sounds like me.
well, it's COVID, right? You have COVID. You're all of a sudden from like streaming is this great dream job, everything's great, but a lot of things you were describing that you loved about it was, hey, I got to like travel the world and hang out with these celebrities and cast these awesome events. All of a sudden, that portion goes away. You're just you're forced to basically stay in your house and your studio and stream. So all of a sudden, some of that appeal goes out. Second, you're really stuck there. So when you're done streaming, you want to go get that extroverted fix. You want to be social. Oh, you can't. Sorry. You're not allowed to. Just go to a different room and stay there. And then you have this long-term burnout of card games, which may have been a big part of everything for you up till now. But you've been playing since Magic the Gathering 4th edition, right? You did not play. You joined card games not long after they existed. 4th edition is not long in the Magic the Gathering history. When you start to think they're on, I remember when 10th edition came out. I think they've gone past 20. Yeah, they've gone past 20 now. And that is,
Well, they're just counting the years now. Now they're just saying like Magic 2022 is going to come out this year. Like it's like their cars now, right? They
yeah,
come out.
it's like this is the 22th model. Here's your Modern
Yeah.
Horizons 3. Here is your Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, the game's changed a lot. But you just kind of like this trifecta of evil coming in where you can't get your extroverted fix. You're getting burnt out on the games you've played for decades, and you're trapped. Like you're some of the parts of the Gwent community, not community, but like the Gwent job that you've put together for yourself. Some of your favorite parts is memories of getting sung "Happy Birthday" with Gwent, celebrities like Noxious, Trump, Life Coach. It disappears. It makes a lot of sense in my mind how this could just lead to you saying, "Look, I gotta get a break," because all your favorite parts went away, and all your least favorite parts are here to stay and magnified.
Mm. It's funny because I wouldn't even say like I know what you're trying to say, but even saying least favorite makes me feel like no, I liked it all, I love it all, and
Hmm.
I do love so much of it. But it's true. I mean, you have to, some aspects are harder than others, right?
Uh-huh.
But the traveling part of the job and everything that I did with casting, very fulfilling,
Hmm.
extremely fulfilling, and the burnout of COVID, because I still did the entirety of season 2 casting. We did
Hmm.
open 1 to 4 and masters, and it was great. It was fun, but it was a different experience.
Hmm.
Like it's burnout is a terrible feeling.
Yes.
It's a terrible, disappointing, sad feeling. It's sad because you're doing something that's supposed to give you enjoyment, and
Not
I feel
there.
like the true nature of burnout isn't playing something and getting angry all the time.
Hmm.
That's part of it. That's definitely part of it. But the nature of it, I think, is the absence of joy when it comes
Hmm.
to if you're doing something for joy. But that's what games are. That games are about fun, about having fun, about happiness. But when you do work on a game, my happiness stops being important
Hmm.
because I'm working. Right? It's not.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Right? Um, but
Kind of.
I think the
Hmm.
nature of because when I was traveling and I was doing the events, there was a nice shake up and break up of my schedule. Very different, I've especially like even comparing Gwent events in North America and Europe, just wildly different,
Hmm.
just a tapestry of experiences. Every time was different, but at the same time still fulfilled all the stuff I liked about going to Warsaw and meeting
Hmm.
people and going to Poland in general.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you take that part away. So we're left with, so now I'm playing the game every day. I have no travel break,
Hmm.
and the job is the same as kind of like my everyday. Like
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
maybe I'm maybe going to wear a different shirt.
Yeah. You just put on your random shirt of the day, go down to your
Yeah.
studio, pop on the
Yeah.
stream, and go.
And it's not even so it's not about like so when I was talking about what Neil Brennan said Neil
Hmm.
Brennan said about ego and adrenaline. This is the kind of thing like casting a casting an event fulfills those two things. Ego because hey, I'm hosting. That's
Yeah.
cool, right?
Everyone's watching you.
And adrenaline because it's a live event. There's
Hmm.
stuff on the line, and everything I say, every word I speak, I think about my job.
Hmm.
Every single sentence, every single fact that I spout, every time I think about saying the next thing when somebody else is talking, I think my job is on the line, even though it's not, but it is.
Hmm.
But it's not. But when you look at the
Well.
responses to some of the
Hmm.
live broadcasts and stuff, it's people think that like people seem to not think that it is a job. Like the way they talk about people just being like, get rid of these people, add new people. Like it's like,
Hmm.
understand how the world works. Like when you get somebody in a position to do something and they do a good job, most companies are really happy about that because that means they don't have to fill that position
Yes.
again
And don't have
because
to
they're
worry
happy,
about it
right?
because that takes the
Yeah.
time and effort and
But
stress.
you've got leagues of clueless people with no investment
Hmm.
saying, "Oh, this person's boring me" or whatever. I don't know. It's not that that ever really bugged me, and I am definitely rambling on from the point that I was making that the burnout of card gaming mixed with COVID kind of trapping me in my own space.
Hmm.
Um, it hurt. Like it honestly changed my like if COVID never happened, my relationship with gaming would be different. I don't know how
Fascinating.
different it would be. I don't know what I'd be doing, but it would be different because I had to make a change. I had to make
Yes.
a change when this happened.
And that makes it. Yeah. It's almost. I wanted to use this analogy a little bit earlier, but it fits here now too, which is like kind of eating chocolate frosting. Because imagine just getting a thing of chocolate frosting and going at it with a spoon. It'd be a miserable experience after the first few bites. Right?
Yeah.
Eventually, it's so sweet and just too much. And COVID
Yeah.
all of a sudden forces you like, oh, you can't do anything but like streaming game. You don't get
Mm.
that variety of other stuff. So it's not that gaming is bad, and it's not that streaming is bad, but too much of it all the time is overwhelming and eventually starts to not be something you're interested in. And that makes perfect sense. And burnout, I feel like, is the curse of it all, low key. In terms of burnout is that moment where you're putting in time and effort, but you're not getting that satisfaction at the end of the day. When you end that stream or win that game, it just starts meaning something. That absence of joy. I think it's really well put.
Yeah, and it's
Hmm.
like unlike other jobs, this is something that I've had to explain to so many people when it comes
Hmm.
to like why this job would be more difficult or as difficult or difficult at all. When people go into work, usually as a generic job, I'll use
Yes.
my last job as an example, like advertising. When I went into work to do my job, there wasn't a chance that I would lose. Like
Yeah.
losing wasn't really I mean, yeah, maybe I could have had like a presentation that didn't go well or something like that, or I get
Hmm.
into or I have an email exchange with a sales rep that I didn't like, but it's not really like I can go to work and like leave work with a losing record and somehow be further behind and
Yes.
like I can't going to work and coming back less better off than I did. Like that's the kind of thing that can happen in ranked gameplay. You can go to work and you can lose all day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a bad feeling,
Yes.
especially when it comes to streaming. And you can act like the other thing about doing work like this, doing work online on the internet in general, streaming, you have
Mm-hmm.
stats everywhere.
Mm.
So feeling bad is very easily measurable. If you wanted to
Yes.
measure it, you can look at all sorts of numbers that would make you feel even worse.
It
Um,
100%. They're all out
mm,
there, and they even emailed them to your inbox on the next day, or even no, not even next day, hour after you finish your stream. They're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you are underperforming your average for the month. You had only 40 viewers during that 8-hour stream." And then, of course, you walk away, you watch your MMR go down. You've lost your games, just on the back foot. It's just too
yeah.
much information.
You finish your work day and you're kind of just like, I suck, and it
Yeah.
just doesn't feel very good. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's what it's like.
Yeah, I also think that another part that hurts is the risk of it all. In terms of people don't, people are like, oh, they're streamers, they're playing games all day, how nice. But it's a really risky entrepreneurial endeavor. You're sitting there, you have to convince people to watch you and like you. You have to keep that going. It's any time anyone else can start their own stream, very low barrier to entry, and they can just surpass you, and that's it. Or people get bored of you and they move on. So you also have a lot of risk in that regard, especially for I feel bad for the people who are casting, because it is such a public role for like Gwent events, as you used to do, where it's a highly competitive role. It's not guaranteed the esports scene is going to continue to exist year to year. It's a small game. And if you're trying to fight for one of these roles, if you don't get one of the events, it can actually it can have an impact on your day-to-day budget if you're trying to do it full time. So there's a
Yeah, I mean
lot.
the last thing a contract worker wants is more uncertainty. Right?
Yes.
Well, yeah,
100%.
it's not a great feeling, but it's not a great feeling to not know like what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Contract work in general is just it's not like career work where or salary work. It's just you have what
Yes.
you have and you hope to have more one day. Yeah. I feel like you made another point that I was gonna elaborate on and I just lost it.
It's okay. Do you want 20
What did,
seconds? Mm-hmm.
no. What did you just you were talking? What was the first thing you said there? Uh,
Let's see.
no, I don't.
It was the entrepreneurial endeavor of it all, and the
Yeah, that's
uncertainty.
what I wanted to talk about.
Perfect.
The idea that one of the biggest things for streaming and YouTube and stuff that people, I mean, it's hard to find this, but with Gwent, I was able to get something together because I had a great opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
because there was, there was a small community, there was a lack of content,
Yep.
and it could have been, and it was CD Projekt Red. I'm like, this is not going to be half-assed.
Yep. No, they're gonna do a great
This
job.
is Witcher money, right? This is Witcher money. So I'm like, okay,
Uh-huh.
this looks really, really interesting. I like The Witcher 3. I like Gwent. Let's start covering this.
Mm-hmm.
And the opportunity was there because the community was small and the work ethic was there. I did it every week and I did it before the game was even out. Like it was just, I got in there. I wanted to talk about the game constantly. And it just ended up with me I was going to quit my job anyway. I was going to quit my
Mm-hmm.
advertising job anyway. It was happening. I was really not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a huge desire to write like fiction.
Yes.
And I remember just kind of I had a decision. We had to talk with my wife, and it's like, maybe like it doesn't matter if you quit and start writing and nothing comes from it.
Mm-hmm.
What's important is that you understand that this job is killing you, and maybe you should just try to do something else.
Yeah, and
But
it's
so
that's
I quit the job anyway. I didn't quit my job for streaming. I didn't quit my advertising jobs for streaming. I was already out. I had already left at that point.
mm-hmm.
But while I was writing this book, my procrastination was the podcast. So
Interesting. Okay.
I just, with procrastination, if I feel like I'm procrastinating, it doesn't feel bad. And I just leaned right into it. And it never felt like work. It never, ever felt like work to do the podcast. And the opportunity was there. The game grew with
Mm-hmm.
me. And when I was given the opportunity to do Nilfgaard was being released for the first time in the beta.
Mm-hmm.
They gave me and Merchant and Mogwai and there were three others with us at the time: Chaotic Priest, King Blacktooth, and my podcast partner at the time, Greyboxer.
Mm-hmm.
And we all were allowed to take the footage that we had, like seeing the first look of Nilfgaard, and take that footage back to YouTube and post it. And that was a huge opportunity. I got thousands of subscribers from like nothing in that couple of days, and I was able to build a foundation to kind of go from there. But if you start with nothing and no opportunity, and even you have to have a lot of stuff going for you. You can't just be opportunity. You have to be, you have to be able to have the technology to stream. Like you have to be able to have like the internet connection, the computer to do it. You need to be able to, you have to be skilled enough to play the game well.
Yes.
Like you have to give people a reason to watch.
A hidden factor.
Generally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You gotta have a personality that matters too. But like really the opportunity can be a real jumping off point. So like, for instance, I'm playing a game right now called Storybook Brawl that came out on the 18th of June. And it's a small game. It's an indie game. It's a small dev team. And I'm enjoying playing it. But what I'm really enjoying about it the most is that the community is quite small and the game is very early. And it's fun, of course. But it reminds me of Gwent. It reminds me of a game that has a lot of interest and a lack of content, that kind of stuff. And I'm not about to do a podcast about this game because it's the same situation as Gwent, but I can still see that there could be a huge opportunity with that game right now. And the difficulty with this part is that even though you see an opportunity, you may not like that opportunity.
That's true.
Like when League of Legends Wild Rift came out to North America, which is like the mobile version of League of Legends, like the more condensed, fun version, in my opinion, of League of Legends. When that came out in North America, there wasn't as much of an opportunity with that game because it was already live in like every other region first.
Yes.
But there still is an opportunity with that game because it's still in beta. So it's kind of like, I guess, not that I know very much about stocks, but it's kind of like you can buy low and it can rise up with you. But you can also see it rising, buy in at a risky price, and still do well. But you can also buy in at a risky price and do terribly. But usually when a game is young, but you don't know if you're going to like the game necessarily. Like you don't know if you're going to like playing it for 4 years straight. You'll never know that. So it's always, there's always some sort of inherent risk. And of course, streaming will affect your life. That's all. It's a time-consuming activity, especially if you want to do YouTube and you don't have a manager or an editor like I do not have. So you have to do, unless you are willing to invest in a manager and an editor, it's so much time to do some basic stuff. That's why when you work for a company, all these other people do the stuff for you. You can do your job, everything gets done. But when you're your own boss and your own single employee, you have all your own equipment, and your only product is yourself. It's different.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of great advice there for somebody trying to get into streaming or YouTube, where there are, I think, a great example of this. If you ever look up like on Sullynome, which is the site for all the different streaming stats, you go to the Fortnite, there's like 2,000 streamers. And like five, 10 will be good. And then everyone else is just wasting their time.
They're just there. Yeah.
They're there. They're noise. They don't really exist. And
but you know what? One of those players with like the 3 viewers might be so good.
Yeah.
Might be so good, but no one would
find them.
Necessarily ever find out because that player may not have gotten the opportunity to prove themselves to get those eyes on them. Them being good at the game isn't enough, right?
Yeah, unless there
needs to be more attention forced onto you, and then you need to hold that attention. It's extremely hard work when it comes to people being very finicky by nature. And that finickiness is amplified by the internet.
Right.
We're more impatient than ever here. We have shorter tempers,
No, 100%. And people want that dopamine rush, right? If I'm not entertained in 5 seconds, I can find the video on YouTube that can. So why would I be here?
Yeah.
And
you have to go in with like the intention of watching it. Like when I go into a stream, I go in with the intention of like not like entertain me. Like I'm usually like, this is what I want to watch. This is the person I want to watch. But yeah, if you're searching for something new, like if you're just getting into a game for the first time, looking at the game's directory for the first time, you don't know any of these names.
Yep.
You see like, this person has 100, this person has 100. It's flip a coin. They don't know that they're auditioning for your viewership, but they are.
Yes.
Right?
And I think you nailed it really well, or you said it really well when you talk about like opportunity in smaller games. Gwent is still a pretty small community. There are streamers who are coming up and who will continue to make progress. There are some who still won't. But you can't get much bigger than Gwent before you start running into a little bit of issues when it comes to that rise. And you don't get that benefit as you described. Hey, I was one of the first people when it came to Gwent to got that Nilfgaard footage, get couple thousand subscribers on YouTube very quickly because I had this exclusive footage, and a small group of content creators had it. Maybe you can get it with a really, really fresh game. You mentioned Storybook Brawlers as a one, or is it Storybook Brawl or Brawlers?
Storybook Brawl, yeah.
Brawl, okay. Not a fan of Brawlers. No, it's not a fighting game. I've seen you play it. But I'm like, it's not, Brawlers, like, imagine like Little Red Riding Hood punching a wolf across the face, which is not quite what happens in that game.
It's so funny. Red Riding Hood is actually not a represented fairy tale in that game.
Really interesting.
The bad wolf is, but
okay.
Yeah, exactly what you say though. It's, but it's an auto battler. It's a completely different card game than Gwent, which is a completely different card game from most constructed card games. Like this, like Storybook Brawl is not a constructed card game. It's an iteration of Hearthstone Battlegrounds with a number of different layers and an individually supported format. So there's no constructed card game version of all of those units. They only exist to be in this auto battler, and it's basically like arcade drafting is how it feels. Yeah, it's what I like about auto battlers is that it's kind of like the deck building and the gameplay at the same time.
Yes.
And even when you draft in Magic the Gathering, the draft period happens, and then you play. And then that exciting draft moment is over when you start playing. But what's cool about auto battlers is that you're always drafting and always playing. So anyway, I'm not here to
no worries.
Sell the virtues of this game, but I'm just saying that, if we're talking about card games, I mean, to the detriment of Storybook Brawl, it is iterating on something that it can be directly compared to Hearthstone Battlegrounds because functionally it is very similar. But Gwent can't be compared to anything, right?
Yes.
But at least, I mean, some people have just completely removed Activision Blizzard from their life. So if you want to have this experience, I think it's better than a Battlegrounds. Like, it just has more layers to it. It's like strictly better. It almost feels strictly better. But you don't have to fuck with Blizzard anymore if you want to get that kind of feel.
Yes.
Like you can get that indie feel, and it's a good indie game, and they're taking lots of feedback. But like I said, I'm not
nice. No, I'm glad you're describing that.
And I'm talking about the way because I didn't play Hearthstone Battlegrounds either, but that unique hook got me. It's new. It got me. It's new to me. It got me. So yeah, like much like the streamer needs opportunity and skill and technology, a new game also needs like those kinds of hooks for the streamer as well. So when those things combine, which I think Gwent and streamers did, because Gwent was always so community focused.
Yes.
They could have hired anybody to do their first cast. Like, really, like, understand this. Gwent Challenger. This is CD Projekt Red. This is the Witcher company with their Witcher money and the production in Katowice on a big stage. They could have hired. I'll just quickly go back to Storybook Brawl for 1 second.
Go for it.
They're having their first tournament in August, and all the commentators of that game, the broadcasters, are all the devs. You know why they did that? Because they can trust themselves to talk about the game well and cover it for the very first tournament. So here we have Gwent, CD Projekt Red. They're going to put on their very first tournament, and they don't know this at the time, but this tournament's going to go long. It's going to go so long. So they have people. They have hired Josh Gray from ESL, and then me and Mogwai, who have no experience, like zero.
They took a chance.
Casting. Well, I mean, we have casting experience in that I cast like over Skype some stuff beforehand, and like I did some stuff to show that maybe I could. And of course, we did the audition. Like, it wasn't just like we went to CD Projekt Red, met them, and they gave us a job. Yeah, we had to go through the audition process. We had to submit videos. I've played this video on my stream before. It's crazy to watch it now. Believe me. Anyway, it's we had to do the whole thing. We got the job legitimately, but still though, I didn't know, like, the camera with the red light and the yellow light, like, you have to make sure you're looking in the right spot, or else the camera, you're going to start the show and it's going to be like, hi, everybody, welcome to the show. And it's like, I'm looking over here. You don't ever want that. And
Yep.
like, we're kind of learning this on the go. And also at the same time, we're learning how to cast nonstop for 11 hours. We're losing track of time.
Yep.
We're finding out that, like, we don't know how many people are watching. We aren't eating. And there was no breaks. No caster switch and no break. There was 1 5-minute break, and they did it because we had to.
Okay.
We had to stop for a moment. But it was they trusted 2 people from the community with their Witcher brand. It's what, like, if I was in the same position, I wouldn't have done that. I would really want the experience. Now, we did have Mod Garrett doing the hosting. We did have Josh Gray knew what they were doing. ESL knew what they were doing. We were in a studio, so it was like very set up for what we were doing. But at the same time, when it came to, like, we are like the broadcast is like the bones. It's like the bones of the show. The guts is the gameplay, but it's held together by the bones. Like, the casters keep it all very easily referenceable and accessible, and that takes a lot of skills that we didn't have at the time. We got so much better because I felt myself learning as I was going. Like, immediately, as soon as the first time Mogwai interrupted me, the first time I interrupted him, I'm like, I'm already learning how hard this can be, how incredibly difficult this can be. Trying to, like, think of what the next play could be, and players maybe move a little bit faster than that. Doing math live in a stressful situation and all that stuff. It was a trial by fire. Like, it was such a trial by fire, and the adrenaline after that event, no way. Nothing has ever been quite like that. Gwent Challenger was 2 was an amazing experience, but Challenger 1, that first experience coming off of that, and they were really happy. Like, CD Projekt Red was happy with our performance. One guy I remember commenting on how long the thing was just like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I'm just saying, like, I honestly think if I had to do an 11-hour advertising presentation, I would say I'd be like, no, there'd be no way I would ever do that. Didn't matter if I thought I could do it, but the adrenaline just carries you through it. It was just over.
Yeah, I
we
think
got there.
There's a lot in there in terms of, first, if we're to summarize the wrap up the streamer conversation from earlier, if we're going to try to find an opportunity, there's a lot of things that go into it. CDPR had a very community focused desire from the start, right? They took a chance on you and Mogwai, and who didn't have this stream, casting background. You guys did a little bit of casting. You had enough to throw together an interview, say this is what we can do individually, and then they bring you in, and you get this incredible opportunity to cast, which then snowballs into other casts versus what Storybook Brawl is doing, right? Playing it safe. We're not really sure about the community. Because they could have come out to you and say, hey, McBeard, we know you have a background in some casting. We know you've been liking our game. Would you take a shot here? And maybe you'd say yes. Maybe you'd be able to stir the pot. Maybe not. But they chose not to seek out in the community. They went with the safe choice. That's less of an opportunity than necessarily CDPR, Gwent, and also the fact that CDPR is risking their $1 billion child in The Witcher. That's really bold. It says a lot about the company and the community around Gwent.
Also, I think the safe thing you said about Storybook Brawl, it's also a finance thing. When all the devs do the broadcasting, they don't have to pay any broadcasters. It's a fledgling game. Like, I get it. They're giving away money in a tournament. They just started their game, so I do see that it's probably the best for them. But yeah, when it came to CD Projekt Red, they have a lot more. They have the means to do more, fly
That's
people
fair.
in from across the world and stuff like that. So yeah, to just take all that and then just say, here, you 2 noobs, give it a shot.
It's pretty wild.
It's just, the risk was like, it was so risky and so cool that they did that. And they've been so community focused. And I think Gwent in general it's a fan game. Like, they wouldn't have made it if people didn't want it.
Yes.
Like, if people didn't write them every day saying, man, Gwent was such a fun part of Witcher 3. I wish I could just play this game as a card game. They had to feel that's where the game came from. When they made Witcher and Gwent, when they made Gwent and The Witcher 3, to my knowledge, just based on the way that I've heard Jason talk about those days, there was no intention of building a standalone game, to my knowledge, at that time.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the fans wanted it, and they're like, you know what? They saw the opportunity.
Yeah.
In the card, and it wasn't even a card game audience. You know how many people have played Gwent that have not played any other card games?
Tons. It's
I don't either,
mind-blowing.
but I will tell you that when I play other card games, they will say, I've never played anything like this, or even Magic, like even stuff, or even Hearthstone. Like people don't, there's no frame of reference. So Gwent being such a wildly different card game, you get a lot of, there's a lot of interesting conversation when I just go play a game like Legends of Runeterra that has a combat phase, just that alone.
Yes.
It brings up so many questions from the Gwent crowd because it happens there's a combat phase every round. So it's like, yeah, it's a whole other concept. And of course, player health, like the idea that you are hitting the opponent and reducing their health to zero, like almost every other game that has PvP, you're reducing an opponent's health to zero before you yourself go down. Gwent doesn't do that either.
Nope.
Like it's like it took everything and just made the opposite.
Yeah, no, and they did do something really unique and wonderful, and it attracts a different crowd than the standard card game crowd. Right, you go from Magic the Gathering, right? You have lands, and lands are in many ways. We talked a little bit before the start of this about how top decks and drawing cards and drawing the wrong card hurts. And lands are the worst in Magic the Gathering. They just let you cast your spells.
They are the worst. But
And
even
then-
Legends of Runeterra has the same problem. Like you can go 2 turns and just draw. Like let's say I have a card in my hand that I don't need, and my next 2 draws are that same card because I have 3 copies on my deck.
Yep.
It's just like, come
Exactly.
on. Like it's just top decking. I was commenting yesterday. I hate it.
No, it
is the worst part of card games. And
is.
card games with the draw phase balance around that. So Gwent, you get 10 cards in your hand and you don't draw. Other card games, you get far less cards in your hand, but you do draw. And then you draw shit and it feels bad. And it's not like you just drew your last 3 cards in Gwent round 3 and it feels bad. It's like it's the beginning of the game and I'm not drawing anything and my opponent's just beating me now. Yeah.
And that's a huge struggle of card games in general. And I will say on a personal level, I love Gwent because it's one of the most consistent card games. You pretty much see half your deck from the beginning. You're not going to get card games.
You're playing with the deck. You're not just playing with what you draw.
Exactly.
In most cases with the deck building process, everything is in there for a reason, or you have doubles just so you hit like one of them for your bronzes. So yeah, you're playing with your deck specifically. There's a new card game, or there's a newer card game out called Flesh and Blood that also does this, where you are expected to play your whole deck at least once, maybe like you reshuffle it. Like at least once you play through your whole deck. I haven't played this game yet, but that concept alone has me extremely interested in trying the game, because the idea of having the deck be your weapon and not just being a pile of resources that you might be able to use. Like if I was a skilled tradesman, I would not have a box full of useless tools.
Yeah, and
tools
pick one out randomly.
I wouldn't bring tools to a job that I wouldn't be able to use, right?
Yes.
Like I don't know if this is even correct.
No, you're good. I
you
can kind of imagine like you can have a toolbox, but it's not when you're just like, okay, I need a hammer to put the nail in. You don't just reach in the box randomly and grab a tool. Like, oh, I got a wrench. We got to use the wrench.
It's like, this has a flat end. I'll use this. I'll just use my wallet here. And
100%, right? You go into the toolbox, you pick up what you need, and you use it. And so I like that certain games are really pushing the boundaries and not just like Magic Gathering, like, oh, lands are terrible. Hearthstone comes along. Oh, we'll just get rid of lands. You get 1 crystal per turn, but still keep the drawing and all of that. Gwent goes in a very different angle. I did
any card, anytime.
Exactly.
That's a very daunting part of the game for newer players. And even especially when it comes to players with when it comes to like learning that meta knowledge and learning your matchups. Like it starts to become like kind of it's funny because like you're playing Northern Realms, you got Radovid's Royal Guards. At one point in some meta, it's like, well, that's my first play. Every time it's probably
a lot of times
Radovid's Royal Guards or Eternian Mauler or whatever. So, but that comes with time, and even then, you could be reacting to your opponent's blue coin play, and you can't do that. Let's say, but it's like you have so many options. Like in a game like Magic, Hearthstone, Legend of Runeterra, you are on a rail. You're on a rail. You have a whole deck full of a whole bunch of stuff you can do, but on turn 1, you can't do any of those things. You can only do the thing that costs 1.
Right. It's simpler in many ways.
in Gwent, you can drop your bomb immediately.
Play your best card. Just yeet it out. So like, come at me, bro.
I'll be real, John. Talking about Gwent on this podcast is like, and I have been pretty high on Gwent over the last couple days. I'm even more excited about playing it. I'm excited for new cards coming out too. That's coming soon too, right?
Yeah.
We're getting another expansion soon. I think I might just I might pick it up for a little bit after the next big season, because it's just, you know, there is a lot of great qualities about this game that I'm finding I'm missing as I
it's its own beast.
Especially yesterday. I ranted yesterday too about top decks I got.
Well, it's its own beast, as we know. We'll go through it. This is what keeps me coming back to Gwent. I wouldn't stream it if I didn't love it. Now, I stream it partially because I also know it's a great game to stream. But if I wasn't willing to sit down and say, oh, could I play this game for 1,000 hours? Yes. And they're getting better and better. That's the other thing I really appreciate about how community focused it is. Because there was a drought period. I think right at the end of like 2012, or not 2012, what am I saying, John? 2020 December, right in the middle of COVID, for like the first 3-4 months of the year, it was a bad time in Gwent, in my opinion. That's when I was streaming it too. And now I think they're hitting their stride. Things are going back to being more complex. The leader ability reworks, even though they're a little bit overpowered for the Syndicate stuff, Line Pockets, Pirates Cove, and Jackpot, is a step, in my opinion, in the right direction. Add back that complexity we missed. Colgrim is a great card because it adds back a new direction to play your deck, more complexity to the game. I miss that. I feel like they're getting it, and I feel like they're also figuring out that, hey, we don't need to do the quarterly card drops like Magic the Gathering, where we're shipping physical products matter. Let's just give them new cards every 2 months, and heck, and on the off months, maybe we'll just toss in an extra bonus card that can stir up the meta some. Keep things really fresh, keep things more complicated, keep things moving. I'm pretty hot on Gwent right now. I think the last time I was unhot was when Vi and Lippy were meta, and that was the worst.
That was a rough time. Lippy is like the baseline for Scalia. It's like, you see, you either has decks that are stronger than Lippy, or they're playing Lippy, I swear.
Yeah.
Lippy's forever like the floor, I think, for Scalia competitively. Like, if nothing's working, Lippy is probably where you gotta look. But so with Gwent, for me, that was right around the time when I actually stopped playing Gwent, as far as like a regular basis. I didn't make a push, like I didn't we were asked at the beginning of the year if we had interest in casting and that kind of stuff, like if there was like some sort of, I guess it was a difficult time, I think, to ask that question too, because like you said, there was a drought. We knew there was going to be a drought. We knew there wasn't going to be anything until June, right? And for me, that was when I left. And I will say this, I felt like one of the driving factors, on top of everything I already said, burnout, all the other stuff that I said that I was suffering with. But one of the driving factors with leaving Gwent, because when I left Gwent, I said that I was doing it. And I feel like I could have not done that. Because there are a lot of people that do stuff like this and make announcements like that. And I had an idea of what I wanted to do afterwards, but then I immediately stopped doing that. And I kind of just, because I wanted to just try a completely different style of game, which was Genshin Impact at the time. And, it is what it is. It's fun. I don't really play it that much anymore, but it felt like a new horizon at the time when I needed one. And it also felt like, and when I said I was leaving Gwent, and I think that the thing that I said the big one was the content looked like we were waiting for another Homecoming's length of time. And I did that already. I'm like, you're making me wait again? Why? You're not even rebuilding the game. Why do you need 6 months? And like, I made possibly a bigger deal out of it than I could have. But I think what happens with people when they decide to make these announcements, and I've seen lots of players move on from one game to another. I think Mogwai is a classic example, because he's someone who moves on from many games, and he moves and people move with him. Like it's never hurt his career to do that. And he doesn't play games he doesn't feel. But when you do that kind of thing, you kind of have to talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it, I guess. So the highlight for me was the long drought. That was going to be something that I personally felt like I would have difficulty with, and I didn't think I had the drive to play until new content for that long. So I said I was going to step out, and that was like, I think that I could have picked any problem at the time that I had, put that on my reasoning, and called it, and it wouldn't really have mattered why I did it. It was more like that I wasn't doing it, and then in the end, it didn't matter anyway because you try to tell something to everybody by putting a YouTube video out and putting tweets out and putting a
Yep.
stream out, and you're still only reaching like probably a lower percentage than
Yeah,
than
you
people
can't.
would think. A lot of people still have no idea what the hell's going on, why you're not like why I wasn't casting or what was going on.
Interesting.
And but when it came down to like, I mean, I don't. I've always criticized people that are just like, I'm leaving, and here's why. But I just whatever's on top of your list when you make that decision is just kind of what comes out. And I think I was
Hmm.
just like, I've had issues with Gwent in the past, and none of those issues made me leave the game. And this issue didn't seem necessarily like so much more worse than having like an unbearable meta or
Hmm.
broken cards or like I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of other things I
No
don't
worries.
like,
I have a
but
question for you. Do you think
yeah.
part of the so you, by the way, did a great job with your video explaining why you're leaving, the twit longer. Like it was all really, in my opinion, I thought it was great. I thought it was very clear. You point out some things, even things I were worried about back then, like the lack of a roadmap made me really nervous for the game. I didn't want it to be like, oh yeah, we're pulling everything back. But I did have a question for you, more on a like fundamental personal level about it. Do you think there was a lack of adrenaline rushes coming and that influenced it at all? In terms of you have these high moments when we're talking, you're really in the moment. You're regaling about getting sung happy birthday by people you really admire, or that first 11-hour cast, chips are on the table, and you're learning as you go, and you're just getting it done. These are the moments where I'm seeing you get really excited. Like these are the peaks. And then you're getting faced in 2021. You have no roadmap. You have a very stagnant meta. You've been playing card games for a long time. And it doesn't look like, on paper, of COVID also there, saying probably no in person tournaments, which a lot of these high moments are coming from. I don't see how you would ever get that adrenaline rush, anything comparable in this entire year, in all of 2021. Do you think that influenced any of your decision to leave Gwent and move on to other stuff and try to find new highs elsewhere?
Yes and no. I think that there was still an opportunity for a lot of adrenaline because I still could have had the opportunity to cast if I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, and that those casts still bring, casting from home or in COVID times. It's like I said, it's obviously a different experience. It's a lesser experience, and it feels very hollow when you can like compare being there, that glow of a post event,
Mm-hmm.
going back to the studio and stuff like that. There's none of that. It's like boom, I'm
Yes.
immediately home, North America, 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yep. Just like a
get on
normal
with my
stream,
day. And it's
in a
just like,
sense.
what? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was just such a strange feeling. So, but it's still, that's better than nothing, right? But I
Sure.
still chose nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I don't think if I am not feeling it, that my expertise, because when you're a caster, you're expected to be an expert.
Uh-huh.
I think you should
I
be
would
an
agree.
expert. And I didn't feel like I was doing something that I wasn't playing it enough to feel like I was an expert.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that, and like I just it's uncomfortable to try to cast a game when you're not feeling your sharpest. I think that um I think that my worst casts were still pretty good, even
Mm-hmm.
if they had some glaring errors or some really cold or incorrect takes,
Mm-hmm.
or even missing something obvious. I still think all those casts were great because I know the amount of effort that goes into doing each and every one of those casts. So some mistakes are made. It's unfortunate when you make mistakes, but it's like you're gonna make them.
Mm-hmm.
No one's perfect,
No, we're human.
and everybody's a critic, right? So it's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Uh, but when it comes down to criticism, something that happens in a lot of artists' minds, and I'm no exception, when you hear something bad, you will focus on it
Mm-hmm. More than the good.
because in a lot of ways, sometimes the troll or the comment or whatever it speaks to the fears you hear in your own head.
Hmm.
So that's the only
Well
validation
put.
that the negative thought needs is your own body saying, yeah, that's true. It feels awful.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started to see more and more criticisms where it's like, I should have caught that or something like that. Like or I start agreeing to the
Mm-hmm.
point, like if somebody says like, I'm a boring, ugly idiot, like I'm not going to agree with that. Right. I'm not going to
Yes.
say, yeah, I think about that all the time. But like if somebody says like, it looks like McBeard he's losing it just a little bit. He's losing his passion
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit. I'm just like, fuck, yeah, maybe I am. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it does check out maybe a little bit. So there's a lot of baggage that comes along with the expectation, especially like when I said before, you have these people that are just like, just get somebody else. Just get somebody else. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's the easiest thing in the world just to do that, just to tell somebody, okay, so you're fired. Now let's just hire
Yeah.
somebody else.
Bring
That's
him
just
in.
better,
Bring in.
Like
Open the box out
yeah,
back. Got one.
yeah. It's so easy. Fucking Johnny Witcher 945 saw it, so it's just he. Why can't you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's that kind of stuff was so infuriating. When it was said about any caster,
Yes.
I'm not talking about me specifically. When
It's
any caster was criticized,
uh-huh.
the first thing that I would try to say in a Reddit thread, if I was commenting on it, and I tended to after these events,
Ooh, bold.
I would say, it's not. Well, we all did. Like,
Well,
but it's a lot of it has to do with people don't really understand how much work goes into it.
no.
People think that we just roll out of bed and do this. Like, it's like there's days of preparation. There's a lot of conversation. We talk about the deck list. We break the shit down.
Uh-huh.
In a lot of cases, when we like, let's say we spent 2 minutes on a really important point about a matchup, we might have talked about that beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Like we might have talked about that exact thing. Maybe we could have even played those decks as well against each other, like while we're waiting in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe make a play that we like just really blew out the other player, and was like, you know what? If this happens in the tournament, we can just go. We can go on this tangent, and then
Yep.
it happens, and it's like.
There we
Like
go.
that kind of preparation. There's like that payoff in preparation. And I think people just think that it's just, effortless because they they think that they're good at the game, or they are good at the game.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I to say? They're good at the game. They see the proper play, because they don't have cameras in their faces and people yelling at them and people talking to them in their ear, and they're not thirsty or can't get up, go to the bathroom. All the stuff that makes casting difficult.
All the other stuff
They
that's
don't
not
have any of
appreciated.
that. They're just sitting in their room alone looking at the game, being like, how the fuck did this caster miss this? Like,
No, that makes
it's just
Mhm.
yeah.
I was just gonna say it's so many levels where it makes perfect sense. It's hard with the camera on you. It's like, oh yeah, it's just a guy behind the camera. Like, no. All the legwork that goes into casting, it's a ton. It's a very competitive job. It requires a ton of effort and proof of your results. And to even get there, every single caster has a ruthless self-improvement drive because it's so competitive. And to be, to have self-improvement, you need to be critical of yourself and say, this was lacking. And it hurts when everybody starts, bagging on you and taking things from like a healthy self-doubt where you're like, okay, I come with my own biggest critic, trying to improve myself. And all of a sudden, everybody's hopping into that category. It probably turns from something that can be really positive because, criticizing yourself and trying to improve is good. Having the criticism of the community standing out to you, feeding your own personal self-criticism might at times be too much and take people down because it is a very mental thing to be on a camera, like, somebody talking in your ear, or just streaming, you have a chat and you're trying to manage everything, and somebody's like, oh yeah, how did you miss that obvious play that kills that key engine in the back? Like, that is, you just totally misread it. You're not even in touch. You didn't put in the work. But of course,
I should have said, by the way, that we're not reading chat while we're casting, just so that's clear.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Like, I'm talking about like the post game, like the Reddit threads where they're like, they're criticizing the casters on various levels, and they're saying something like, it's pretty clear that X person doesn't play the game or whatever. Like it'd be like, they would say something like let's say Jagras had a game where she happened to make more jokes than usual, and like in the thread it would be something about her not playing, and I'd be like, shut up. Like we ought, like,
yes,
like it seems like dumb. Like it's like when you say like when you say someone isn't doing something that they clearly like are doing, like
Yeah.
you say something like, "Oh, you're not eating at all." It's like, well, if I wasn't eating at all, I'd be dead. So yeah, I'm eating. Like that. I'm just using a really
Infuriating.
weird example.
No,
That came
you're
to my
good.
head,
I'm
but,
with
like,
you. You're not.
the idea like that Jaggers doesn't play Gwent is like so fucking ridiculous. Like, do you really think that we would be casting a game that we didn't play at all? Like, that's just like
Right.
that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff drove me crazy. Like the idea that we were not just not the best casters or that we could do better, but we were like somehow completely unqualified for the job. Like that kind of stuff just usually just sent me off the deep end. And that was usually not about me. Like the idea that I was unqualified, I don't think that ever came up. But I would see certain criticisms about casters as it would come and go, and I'd just be like, we're all playing, we're all part of this process, we're all talking. Like the product of the cast is our shared experience with the conversation with us and the players. Another thing that goes away with COVID is that we didn't have as much exposure to the players. And that is a huge amount of, we get so much from that. Like we could have like a 2-second conversation with Game King and like, we would get like his entire game plan. Like he was like, wouldn't take a lot for him to explain just a couple of card choices. Like, hey, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? That would just drastically improve the cast for it's like a second. Like that's something that we also kind of lost out on a little bit from COVID. But yeah, just generally though, the idea that the casters weren't really putting in the work or putting in enough work when we are all very passionate fans of this game, it hurts. But that's the kind of thick skin, like I said, that Magua and I were green as shit when we went in. Like we just didn't know, we had no experience and we learned on the go. But we also learned how to thicken our skin on the go too. Like we didn't go in tough. Like I mean, I went in a little tough coming out from a bartending experience and advertising. You do get a lot of, you do have to learn how to not sweat through some either difficult moments or small stuff that can really ruin your day. Like so you get a little hardened by that, but for the most part, you don't get like when I was when I was bartending, I guess I am the product, but I am also serving drinks, right? In this case, I am the product, but I'm also showing the game off. But in this case, when you are the product, you're the criticism of your work, of yourself, of your job. It's the criticism of everything you are. It's not just like your joke isn't funny. You're not funny. We like you, but you're not funny. It's like we don't like anything about you. Like we dislike you too. And everything that you identify as is somehow less.
Yeah, it is very personal, right? Again, you mentioned it, I think, way early in the conversation, how a regular job, it's not nearly as personal. You go to work, you come back, it's a day. But in casting, and particularly for casting, it is personal. This is McBeard. This is who
I took it personally when people talked about any casters. Like I felt like there anything about a caster was like I took it personally.
That's interesting.
Because I was fiercely proud of our crew. Every permutation of it, I've been very proud of because I felt like no one has ever dragged their feet really.
Right. The casting space for Gwent. Every time I see a lineup, I always admire the people they pick because they're all absolute monsters at what they do. They do great work. They're passionate. They put in the effort. They know the plays, and a lot of that isn't appreciated. It's tucked
you have to impress a hard to please audience.
Yes, and very quickly and high stakes
like
too.
I said, people think they're good or they are good, and in both of these situations, those people, whether imagined or truly, are going to criticize. First of all, you're criticizing the plays. Even like two very good players are playing, you criticize every play, and then you criticize the call on the play. So it's just it's an all you can eat for these kinds of people in Twitch. But you have to these people aren't the boss, but they kind of are. Like it's
kind of they're the consumers in a sense, but it also gets weird because there's the balance of saying CDBR has to, and I think they've done a great job with this, has to be able to recognize when the consumers of the game, right, the players who are watching the opens and challenger series, when they're correct and when they're all wrong. There is no better alternative. There is no way to please them, and we have a great crew. We got to stick with them. And I think they've done a nice job sticking with their crew. When I see the changes, it never feel like any person doesn't belong on that stage or on that broadcast. So yeah, but it's a tough balance because you're consuming, on the internet, you can be as vocal as you want without consequence. You can just say, I really hate that person, or that person doesn't know anything. And I think it's really interesting how you also take it personally for the other casters, right? You are a team. And I
Well,
think
we're
you,
friends too. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I would like to believe that especially when we were traveling and stuff, like we're hanging out all the time, right?
Hmm.
Online it's a little bit easier to form these friendships, of course, but I mean, I know all these people already, so
Yes.
we're all friends. So, I would take issue with people picking apart my friends in any situation, especially if
Hmm.
it was baseless. Like,
Yes.
especially like you defend your friends, you
Hmm.
defend your buddies, but like, yeah, if it's baseless, it's like, let's go to war on this. I
Yeah,
don't
because
know.
there's
I'm
nothing
I'm
there.
that kind of person. Sometimes that is not actually a very good attitude to have, I think. But at the
It's a
same time,
balance.
it's like it's okay to be to care about your friends. I'd like to think that if it came to aggression, if it's protection,
Hmm. I think it.
there's enough virtue in it.
I'd rather have, I think, friends that might go a little too far to protect you than not enough. Leave you out to dry. Like, oh yeah, you can handle
Oh
this.
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
rather have someone like I'd say, oh yeah, you gotta back off here. Let me do my thing. I'll take care of the problem, rather than
There's a
saying,
happy
hey,
middle between I
yes.
can't take you anywhere and why did I bring you? Kind of, there's definitely there's that friendship is somewhere in there.
So I'm curious about, you walk away from casting. Going back to your
I,
story here, and part of it, you have a lot of reasons from the sounds of it. One of the things that strikes me is that you talked about a lot, the preparation that goes into casting. You need to be at a high level, all the stuff behind the scenes, and you're just kind of getting done with Gwent. You're a little burnt out from it.
in December and January,
Hmm.
very true. Yes,
And
I
that's,
was
hmm,
uh, in those months. I was certain that I mean, it's weird, right? It's like it's the idea of like the twit longer and the announcement. It's like
yep,
if I say it, I can never come back, kind of thing. Like it's like who
that's not
says? But I
true.
mean, I never said. I said
No,
that I was excited for new content, but I wasn't excited about waiting 6 months for it. Like
uh-huh,
people seem to forget the part where I didn't where I
yeah,
or manufacture the part where I said that I was gone forever. Where it's
no,
like,
I don't.
why would I make such a big deal just to come back so quickly?
It,
And I'm like, the whole point was that 6 months is not quick.
no, and
And
you
you
have
think
other
6 months is
things.
quick. That's your perception. For me, it's been
Yeah.
an incredibly long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, an incredibly long time. Like, imagine living with someone and then spending like even a month apart. It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wildly different experience. So believe me when I say that, like, and like I said, I've been playing a lot of other games. It wasn't even just card games
Mm-hmm.
that I've been playing
Yep.
since I stopped playing Gwent. I didn't play a card game until May. I went from
Wow.
And honestly, I think I had like one Gwent stream in January,
Mm-hmm.
and even that one felt very forced. I was really, really not feeling it. So I would say that I didn't play a single card game that wasn't a PvE card game,
Mm-hmm.
like Loop Hero, if you want to consider that, um, for over 5 months of the year. And
Mm-hmm.
card games are like my thing. I was so and PvP as well. I'm just like, going to work and losing. I don't want to do that anymore. So I'll play
Mm-hmm.
Genshin where I don't lose
Yes.
because there's no opponents or whatever.
Yeah, it's an MMO.
I'll play Loop Hero where I will lose, but I lose to the computer and they won't, you know, taunt
Yeah.
me as they win.
Yeah,
And the
it's
bravest
fine.
thing that people can do.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff. Like it's just in Sea of Thieves, I picked up that. We played Valheim for a bit. I played Returnal for a week.
Nice.
Great game. I played. I'm just looking at my desktop here.
No worries.
Games that I've played, and Hades, of course, was a big part
Oh,
of last year.
love Super Giant games.
But a lot of these games I haven't even played this year, man. Oh man.
Yeah,
But
mm-hmm.
yeah, the idea is that I was just really didn't want to do PvP anymore. I didn't know if I wasn't in a. I felt like I wasn't in a good space to feel angry, and I was feeling angry when I was just losing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's burnout. I think like it's not fun to lose, but when you're getting angry when you lose, that obviously affects your stream. And there's also the fact that if I'm less interested in the game, I'm more burned out. I'm probably playing worse, so I'm probably losing more. So
Mm.
it's a slope,
Yep. It feeds
and
itself.
putting yourself, and then you're also like, if I am embarrassed by a loss, it's not good. It's no one in the chat or no one watching me saying, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Everybody goes through it. Will make me feel less embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
And the embarrassment is amplified by the number of people who are watching, right?
Yep.
And like this is still like this is very like get over it. You're a streamer. This comes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
That happens in the first couple of years and maybe you stop caring about it. But every now and then I would just feel really uncomfortable. And I called it camera burn. And I would do this thing where I would actually turn off the camera and I would have a great stream. Because
Interesting.
when I'm sitting playing,
Okay.
and I'm waiting for something to happen, I don't want to be like,
I feel that you have
sitting in
to
my room playing.
if your camera's on you, you have to be on even if nothing's
I
happening
make
in
my
the game.
plan. I'm like, all right, guys. No, I don't
Mhm.
actually do that, but it's still like there's still a lot you're on.
Mhm.
When you're streaming without a camera, you're still on, but it's different. Like when I say you, I mean me. Like it's different. It can be wildly different.
Yeah.
Even a podcast where the camera wasn't on, this conversation would sound different. I
Mhm.
think it would be different. It's it's not better or worse, but it's the idea that like being that person that's on all the time. I feel like this is kind of like obvious stuff. Like it's hard to be on all the time. It's the
Uh-huh.
same kind of thing that stand-up comedians deal with, where it's like, oh, your business is being funny.
Mhm.
You better be funny all the time. That's
Yep.
what I expect. Hey,
Or
here's a joke
else.
for you. You're just like, I don't want to.
Right.
Even when we even like even talking about games. Like I've got friends that they work 9 to 5s. They work 9 to 5s in an office. They play video games. They're better than I am in a lot of video games too. They've been playing video games for as long as me, but they don't play video games for a living. So they'll be like, "Hey, Dan, you want to play some Guilty Gear tonight?" Like I'm burnt out from playing games all day,
Uh-huh.
and now I want to. And now it's like, "Oh, Guilty Gear, that's going to take like all of my attention. That's like a fast game." So it's like I don't think I can play games. Like I have friends that we
Interesting.
bond by
Okay.
playing games together, and by the time my friends want to play games, I'm like tired of gaming,
Wow.
and it's just like constantly reconciling these feelings on a regular basis. These are just like some of the examples of what I would deal with month to month with my relationship with gaming, my relationship with people and the camera, my relationship with my love for gaming, and that kind of stuff. And when it came to like walking away from casting, I knew that the person that was walking away wouldn't be missed, because the
Mhm.
person that was walking away wasn't the person that was doing a good job before.
Interesting.
The person that was walking away was making a very difficult decision to like. I just don't think I'm not a person that can like. I'm the kind of person that I can't give empty compliments. I have a hard time
Mhm.
like lying to make people feel good.
Yeah,
Like
you
I would never like.
you're
I'm
a
just
genuine
like
dude.
I'm the kind of guy that people with ugly babies are scared of, because I'm just like, "Ugh, that baby is ugly." I'm just kidding. I'm just that's a joke.
Well, yeah,
But
but you're saying you're genuine.
I am like the kind of person that I'm not into empty compliments. I'm not into selling a feeling that I'm not feeling. However, I'm a person that I can trick myself into being excited.
Okay.
I had to do that a lot when I was bartending and serving.
Mhm.
My coworkers would say, "Oh, I heard you at your table. You were doing your laugh, your fake laugh." And I'm like, I can
Oh.
see why they would say that,
Yep.
because they hear me laugh genuinely because they're my friends, and they
Uh-huh.
hear me laugh at the table and they hear a difference. But I heard that, I'm just like, that's not fake. I'm not
Hmm.
faking. Like I'm laughing with those people. But there's still a difference. There's a little bit of there's a tricking to it that keeps I feel like I actually think we need to wrap up the interview because it's getting a little late, but I want to
No
bring this
worries.
all back around for you.
By all means.
I don't even know if this was part of the interview that you were recording, but you were talking about Buddha. You're talking
Uh-huh.
about Buddha, who, he has everything, he gets bored. What does he do when he has everything? And I actually am I really like the concept. It's a Zen Buddhist concept called Shoshin, the beginner's mind.
Mhm.
Beginner's mind in general is the idea that you can appreciate something as a beginner, even if you're an expert. And I have a little thing that I keep on a post-it in front of me. It's an acronym. It's FAST.
Mhm.
Forever a student teaching. I think that it is so important to be able to remove. Is it removing of the ego, or is it you're removing the feeling of needing to be in control and in
That's the
charge
ego.
and on.
Yeah.
It is there's ego involved there.
Mhm.
You take that out, and I think actually a lot of being able to really appreciate beginner mind is taking breaks.
Mhm.
Because like when I boot up Legends of Runeterra, I take months at a time off of that game. It's always wildly new. Lights
Mhm.
my mind up completely. I'm like, look at all this stuff I can build. Doesn't matter if I play it for long or not, but there is an easier appreciation there. When you become more and more of an expert, it's harder to do that. But you remember that when you have people watching you, and as a broadcaster as well, there are varying levels of accessibility to the broadcast, the enjoyment of the broadcast, and the enjoyment of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to appreciate how a new player would look at anything at any given time will help you capture enough of that excitement. So if I'm doing that fake laugh at the table, laughing like, yeah, it's going to sound a little different because I've heard that joke before. I'm not laughing at it like, oh, that's funny.
Yep.
I've heard that joke 100 times before, but I'm laughing like I heard it for the first time, even though I haven't. And I think that being able to approach everything as an expert, but also as a beginner, it's a very difficult thing. It's like meditation. You're never going to be good at something like that. You're never going to be able to approach something on two sides perfectly. But if you can get there, it's the most pleasurable feeling to feel like you're experiencing the same revelations as the people that are watching you. It makes it less like you're on a pedestal or a podium and more like you're part of the experience. And I think that as a caster, that's one of the main things. But as a streamer, you can really step back. As a caster, you're still in a position. The mic's there, the cameras are on. But like when you're streaming, you can really step back and you can really slow down that experience. And I live for those moments day to day, trying to find that beginner mind in expertise. It's hard, as meditation is hard. I'm also learning how to do that as well at this moment. So, and I feel bad. This was such a great conversation. I actually could go longer. I have something at 12. I gotta go, I think.
Oh,
but I really wanted to say it was a joy to be on this podcast and just shoot the shit with you about.
Hey,
it's kind of like I didn't really think I would enjoy talking about myself that much, but I'm like, okay, well, I think I could fill an hour, and here we are, bordering on 2.
Yeah, I can tell you. I'll be honest. The first 10 minutes when you were on, I realized I could probably go 6 hours with you, and probably not even scratch the surface. And that has only gone. More we've talked, the more I feel very confirmed. Because we could go down paths all day. You are a very interesting individual who has a lot of interesting philosophies. It's been a wonderful time.
Hey, they're not mine, man. I do a lot of reading. I'll recommend this one here. I'm reading this right now.
Hardcore Zen? Interesting. I haven't heard that one.
Hardcore Zen. Good. Punk rock, monster movies, and the truth about reality. It's really cool because it's not just about the stuff you read, it's the viewpoints. Because like the world is how you view it, but it's the world at large, like the world we live in is how everybody, it's like the combination of all those things. Nice. So seeing especially viewpoints that you agree with, just being said in a different way is really amazing. Because like my wife has been meditating for a very long time, longer than I've known her.
Okay.
Me, not so much.
Hard to keep
but as I'm learning this year, I can tell her things that she knows, but I'm learning from a different person. Let's say, like I have a different meditation app that she does, so I have a different meditation teacher than she does. So I can explain stuff conceptually that she understands, but she's never heard it that way before, and it becomes a brilliant. It puts a new shine and a new polish on it, and I think that to really close the interview, as this world kind of reawakens and we're coming back out of COVID times, I find that as I'm having visitors and I'm doing visiting again, I'm really appreciating the multifaceted world that we're in, and being stuck in my home for so long, I feel like I've just been peering out of this one telescope at the same thing for so long, and that's really helping me appreciate that I'm not agoraphobic. I do not have a desire to never go out.
Nope.
But I have a desire to connect to people. Thankfully, streaming allows me to do that in a hermit-like way. But going out there is also nice.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And then McBeard, I'll go ahead and let you wrap up. I don't want to keep you too long. Thank you so much.
I can't stop talking.
Oh, I know. That's why I'm getting nervous, because if I could ask you 2 more questions and you'd miss your appointment, I'd feel really bad for you.
Well, I mean, somebody's coming over, so it's like I have a visitor, but they're going to be here in 13 minutes. That's the idea, and I got to clean up. So
no worries, McBeard. Is there anything you want to say to the people right now?
Thanks for watching this. If you're here and you're here to see me, I am just so humbled by that. And thanks to Plain Talk John for having me on the show. Thanks, John.
You're
I
welcome.
think you're doing a good job here with these shows. I think that your approach is just fantastic. As someone that has interviewed a lot of people, I can tell you that I know when an interview is rigid and when it isn't. And this was loose. This was loosey goosey. It was an absolute pleasure to do this. And yeah, thanks to everybody who watches Gwent. Thanks for everybody who is involved in gaming communities. Thanks to everybody who comes into Twitch and interacts with the chat. And thanks to everybody who appreciates what we do. And just, I love you all, guys.
Well said. Thank you so much for those kind words, McBeard. For everyone watching or listening, definitely keep an eye out for McBeard on Twitch and YouTube. McBeard, once again, thank you so much. Shout out to McVandar and Ahmed Ali for all their wonderful, joyous, and most excellent support on Patreon.